Hill is not a conservative outlet. It's a liberal outlet. They're writing this. My feeling is the fact that they're trying to say, if they get rid of the Department of Education, this is even going to make it worse. That's what they're trying to claim, right? That's what they're trying to say. But even Bill Maher, when he was saying, I almost agree with everything Rahm Emanuel says, he says there's a reason why this doesn't work. Kids are not getting better grades because of this. So the fact that they're auditing them, getting deeper to see where the hell is this money going, how are we holding these guys accountable to do a better job with our students, I think that's a good thing. Vinny, your thoughts?
Yeah, there's a guy that told me to read this book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. His name is Patrick. You might know him. And one of the main things that the book, Pat, and you could attest to this, was that traditional education system suppresses independent thinking and creativity in schools. They teach kids to conform, memorize, and obey, then develop critical thinking and self-reliance. So he claimed, the education system is a tool to keep kids trapped. It keeps, and it doesn't surprise me that all this money and all this suppression, there was two things. It was religion, how religion keeps everybody separated, and it was a school system. And just to take a step back, as Tom reminded me, think about what Fauci did, what they did with the pandemic, and all the policies, Tom, that screwed over these same students.
In public schools.
So it's like, and again, this is just on top of the list, Pat, of all the other stuff where kids are the most neglected. There's a million of them missing from the border, 300,000 here, 200,000 here. They're the most neglected. But I think this type of situation is one of the best things, Pat, because they're exposing all these people for who they are.
Yeah, but by the way, if your kid is over 12 years old, have them read Outwitting the Devil.
1,000%.
I had my son read Outwitting the Devil. Now my second son is reading Outwitting the Devil, and he's 11 years old. He's going to go through this book as well. It gives them the ability to think for themselves without being brainwashed. Yep. That's really what it is, because there's a lot of brainwashing going on. Rob, how heated would you say the debate was yesterday about folks being brainwashed? And he says, I cannot believe you would think that 2/3 of Iranian people would be brainwashed to turn against the Shah. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Brainwashing works. I asked him a question. I said, let me ask you a question. You sound like somebody that probably believed. And by the way, the person I'm talking about is Mohsen Sazegara, who was the former founder. He was the founder of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, was here yesterday for a 2.5-hour podcast. Never done this before. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, you claim brainwashing doesn't work. No, you can't brainwash more than half the populace. I said, really? Did you believe in the Russia collusion, that Trump was tied to it? He couldn't answer for 3 seconds. He says, well, I read 2 books, and one of the books said the fact that, et cetera, et cetera. I said, really? I said, Rob, can you pull up a number on what percentage of Americans believe that Trump was tied to Russia collusion? Remember when you pulled up that study, Rob? Over half of Americans
over 50
brainwashing works.
100%.
Especially when they start with kids early.
Bingo.
Tom, I know you have more thoughts on this.
Yeah, this is also, there were the states. So every state had the issue, meaning in every single state, when you took those poor kids out of classrooms, and the public schools didn't have as much resources for Zoom and things like this to have the kids at home. My girls were, and your kids were on Zoom, and I forced them to be on, and I made sure they kept reading and they stayed on it. Not every parent was doing that. And then the public schools is where it hit the hardest, because they didn't. And plus, you had teachers saying, well, I'm working from home and I'm wearing a mask, 25 hours a day, and I'm not going to do this. All of that thinking, these poor kids at the public school level. That's why this report is called the Education Recovery Scorecard, looking at things post-pandemic. But you know what? Government never met something it didn't want to manipulate. And I think, Pat, you made the best point of the last 10 minutes here. The Hill is trying to build the case. And I'm just going to wait. I mean, you predicted that they would be trying to pit Elon Musk and Trump against each other. I'm going to follow your lead here. And I predict we're going to start seeing stories that say Trump is impeding kids' ability to recover from COVID. They're going to admit the kids had a problem with COVID. And Trump is impeding their ability to recover because he closed down the Department of Education. Because I believe you're exactly right, your observation. I hadn't thought that way. And I believe you're right. They're running this story to plant the seed to blame Trump, when really what the story proves is that the public school kids were messed up the worst by COVID.
Let me read this next story and then